2 News starts now.
Right now at 6, tracking Isaias. The 2 key takeaways tonight: the storm did not strengthen back into a hurricane, and the track continues to keep it offshore.
This is a live look from New Smyrna Beach as the tropical storm slowly makes its way up our eastern coast. Rough surf and winds are beginning to pick up along the coast. And while this may amount to just a close call for much of us, it is still a solid reminder that we are well into an above-average hurricane season.
And tonight we are here to bring you the latest in the storm's track and a real-time look at conditions all along our coastline. Our West 2 crews are spread out from Flagler to Volusia and Brevard counties.
Tonight, First Alert Chief Meteorologist Tony Benalfi is here with the latest track and intensity for Tropical Storm Isaias.
And with the brand new 5 o'clock update here just a short time ago, the winds have strengthened up to 70 miles an hour now, but the core of the strongest winds are offshore. At the open, you saw some folks with rain, some of the bands coming on in, others had sunshine. That is typical with tropical systems as we get the banding going on, and we have a few of those right now over the interior. So there is the movement. Northwest, pressure holding steady, 994. By 2 a.m., we'll be right along the Volusia-Brevard County line, and then quickly accelerating more towards the north by early afternoon. Very good model agreement, as you can see, offshore enough that we keep the core of the strongest winds offshore. Any severe weather threat offshore. We'll still have some wind. We'll have to watch that very carefully here. We do have tropical storm warnings now up for Brevard, Volusia, and portions of Flagler County. Through the interior, all the warnings have been discontinued. We have high wind warnings up, but again, as you can see, we do have some bands coming in off of the core, the center there, with Isaias well offshore. Some of the bands coming on in, producing some squally winds late this afternoon in that 40 to 50 mile an hour range, but just offshore, very close to 70 mile an hour winds. Right now, the recent wind gusts anywhere from about 15 to about 35 miles an hour. Now, the peak wind gusts thus far today, as of 5 o'clock, in that 41 to 49 range. Barefoot Bay leading the league right now, so to speak, with the highest wind at 49. There is the latest loop. You can see the spin, the tropical storm force gust right along the coast there. The last couple of images there. Back through the interior, the gust holding steady in that 15 to 30 mile an hour range. So let's spell this out for you. There's 8 p.m. Sunday. We work our way to 2 a.m. right along the Volusia-Brevard County line. Notice how it's moving more towards the north now, and then eventually the north-northeast. So we'll get the bands throughout the night and throughout at least the first half of the day tomorrow, and then things will begin to improve. Now, as far as the winds are concerned, there you go. By about 9, 10 o'clock, strongest winds about 60 to 65 miles an hour. Those are the peak wind gusts here on into Brevard County. Notice the winds picking up here after midnight, 38, 39, becoming 50, 51 right around 5, 6 o'clock in the morning here along the immediate coastline of Volusia County. And then the winds kind of skirt the coast there. Flagler County, 35, 45 as the storm continues to pivot more towards the north and the east. So let's break down Brevard County here. Biggest wind impacts here with gusts upwards of 65 miles an hour. Worst weather now through about 5 a.m. During the day tomorrow. Storm surge 2 to 4 feet there. The Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach. Winds here 40 to 50 miles an hour. Peak gust 50 to 60 miles an hour. We'll watch that storm surge there. 2 to 4 feet still expected. And finally, up here into Flagler County, 40 to 50 mile an hour sustained well after midnight. Gusts could top 55, 60 miles an hour. We'll talk more about the interior, and we'll also talk more about that storm surge, guys, straight ahead.
Tony, thanks. This is one of those storms where the slightest change in the track makes a huge difference.
And that's why we were keeping a close eye all along our coast tonight. But as Isaias pushes north, we want to begin in the southern part of our viewing area with West 2's Dan Billow.
And Dan, what's happening in Melbourne Beach?
Jim, I think we're right at about the level where the center of the storm is maybe almost at its closest approach to us. Here on Melbourne Beach, this beach has been restored. Taxpayers dumped all this sand onto the beach here, and we are watching it really get hammered and eroding by the minute. That's actually okay. Residents here are very glad to see this sand being washed away, which is its purpose, rather than public roads or homes. You know, this may be the worst of it right now, and if that's the case, it really isn't all that bad as the waves at high tide just pound at this cliff here. I talked to one resident who's been here a while. He's been through a lot of these.
So we've been through Irma, Dorian, and Matthew, but we usually evacuated for those. So this is the first storm we're actually here for. So,
What do you think of it?
it's not bad yet, but I think they were saying like 4:30. Right about now, you see the wind kicking in. I think is when we're going to see the brunt of it.
And if we come back live here, we come back live now, you're going to see a baby sea turtle. You might have got to look at it, and it's really sad. There are eggshells here. Has been a nest of sea turtles. We've seen a few dozen eggs that were on this embankment get uncovered and washed away, and a couple of little helpless baby sea turtles get washed into the waves there. They probably don't stand much of a chance. We're live in Melbourne Beach. Dan Billow, West 2 News.
That erosion happening, Dan, thank you. Now, it's a similar story about 30 minutes north in Cocoa Beach, where the winds and rain are starting to pick up.
That's where we find West 2's Amanda Dukes for us live tonight. Amanda, how rough is the surf looking there?
Oh boy, it is pretty rough. Now we're actually getting a break from the rain right now. The sun's shining a little, but we've got very gusty wind, and I'm going to show you how rough the surf is here. If we pan over, we are right alongside the Cocoa Beach Pier. You can see it. Someone described it a few minutes ago. It's almost like a washing machine, and we are seeing wave heights here in Cocoa up to 9 feet. So the big warning to everyone is do not attempt to go into the water right now. Very, very dangerous. Now, earlier we were talking to some of the folks who were just coming here to the beach by the pier to check out the conditions. Most people told me their sense is they got off the hook with this storm, and we actually found very few people who made any of the typical preparations like boarding windows or putting out sandbags.
Not like years past. You know, we did a lot of preparations for Irma and Matthew, but for this storm, we didn't do much.
Now, Brevard County did open up one shelter this morning in Viera. They said within the first 3 hours, only one person showed up looking for assistance. So they helped that person and then made the decision to close the shelter. Now, we do expect the conditions out here to get worse as the night progresses. And again, Brevard County emergency officials stressing no one needs to be going into that water because it really is life-threatening in terms of how churned up the surf is. Live in Cocoa Beach, Amanda Dukes, West 2 News.
As we head into the evening and overnight hours, more of the focus will be on the conditions in our areas to our north. West 2's Kelsey Thorpe picks up our team coverage live in Daytona Beach. So, Kelsey, are people preparing there? How's the beach?
Well, guys, we talked to some people earlier, and I think people are taking this pretty casually, this storm. But you can see how it is right here, right now. We really haven't seen any rain this afternoon. You can, though, see the tide is coming in. It's really started to get up close here. We're right on the beach line, right when you come into Daytona Beach. They've shut this down to cars because that water is coming in. Now, Volusia County had opened shelters, but they then decided to close all those shelters because people were not going to the shelters. We did speak with a couple of people earlier about any preparations they were making. Here's what they had to say.
I think we're going to get a little bit of storm. It's going to wash up some good fishing for the locals, and it might be a good thing to stir up a little bit of work.
I'm actually feeling good about it. I mean, I've lived here in Florida for about 25 years plus, and I've seen worse. But this is like the calm before the storm, so everyone's got to be prepared.
And you heard that guy there. He said it's the calm before the storm. Really, it's not expected to get that bad here in Daytona Beach, at least for the next couple hours, and it's really into overnight. So we'll be out here all night, but for now, here in Daytona Beach, I'm Kelsey Thorpe. Back to you guys in the studio.
Kelsey, thanks. Continuing our live team coverage in Flagler County, which is the last to feel the effects of Tropical Storm Isaias.
West 2's Greg Fox is live on Flagler Beach for us. Greg, authorities scaled back their emergency plans this afternoon.
They did. The Emergency Operations Center announced earlier this afternoon that they were not going to have any mandatory evacuations. Basically, they were just keeping an eye on the storm. And as we show you the current conditions here, which are pretty rough, but also on a beautiful and sunny day here out by the Flagler Beach Pier, we'll tell you that the storm surge watch has also been canceled. Let's take a look at some video from earlier this afternoon. There are a number of mobile home and RV parks up and down A1A, so the sheriff's office and local police have been going into neighborhoods closest to the beaches to remind residents to secure anything that might fly around in the storm. I talked with the sheriff and some of the residents here about the storm's drop in intensity and its latest track.
You know, we've had 3 hurricanes here back to back, and we really were not looking forward to another one. The beaches were just rebuilt, and so we kind of dodged a bullet here.
Of course, you know, it's still a lot of stress bringing everything in, tying everything down, and not knowing if you have to evacuate and stuff. So, I mean, it's the price you pay to live, you know, live in paradise right here.
A beach renourishment project launched after Hurricane Matthew 4 years ago on the north end of Flagler Beach is completed. The work on the south end has yet to begin. Coming up all new tonight on West 2 News at 10 and 11, we'll look at the reconstruction of A1A that was also washed out 4 years ago. Live in Flagler Beach, Greg Fox, West 2 News.
Our team coverage doesn't stop here. While Isaias isn't lashing Florida like storms have in the past, there's still one major concern at the beaches. We'll take you there live. Plus, dealing with hurricane season during a pandemic, how our local leaders are juggling the two next.
Our team coverage continues as we track the path of Tropical Storm Isaias.
West 2 is keeping a close eye on the storm's path and the potential impact it could have along our coast. Tonight, West 2's Chris Guardaro is live on New Smyrna Beach. Chris, what about conditions right now?
Well, Jim, other than some drizzle that just started a minute ago, it's been relatively calm, a little bit breezy, but not too serious. Take a look at the surf here at New Smyrna Beach. 4 or 5 levels of choppy waves, but nothing too crazy that would cause some damage here, but something to keep an eye on is a possible storm surge. It may not be big enough to create any major flooding, but it may have an effect on the beach, causing some erosion. As Dan Billow had mentioned a little bit further south, some of the sea turtle nests may be damaged from this storm itself. But these otherwise clear conditions for the last few hours here in New Smyrna Beach have attracted hundreds of people to enjoy what is otherwise a sunny day at the beach. In the last few hours, we've also been watching as people have been swimming in some of that choppy water. Again, that is not recommended. There was a red flag that was waving here at New Smyrna Beach. We're expecting some dangerous waves here in the next few hours as the storm does get a little bit closer. But we spoke to some families who traveled to the beach to see if the surf had become hazardous.
We actually came over, we're like 2 hours inland. So we actually came over to kind of see everything churning up, but it's really not bad at all.
Now, we have been watching as lifeguards, they're on duty on Volusia shoreline just in case people try to get into this turbulent water here. Now, some of the businesses along the coast here, we've been watching, most of them have been open up until this point. The windows have not been boarded up and hurricane shutters have not been installed. So we're going to keep an eye on their reaction to this storm as it nears as well. We're here live in New Smyrna Beach. Chris Guardaro, West 2 News.
Chris, thank you. Tonight, West 2 is not only tracking the path of tropical storm Isaias, but the impact the storm is having on our communities, also dealing with the coronavirus. West 2's Michelle Meredith is live for us in Winter Park. And Michelle, our shopping habits have been a sign of the times.
Well, we're on Park Avenue, right down the street from Miller's Hardware. And like many stores, they're ready with all your disaster needs because that's our new reality. So, feet away from the standard hurricane supplies was a collection of COVID-19 supplies, gloves, masks, wipes. And although people have been buying both, this week the really hot ticket items were naturally storm-related. Propane gas, grills, flashlights, batteries. Stressful? Yes. People say it's like getting ready for a double whammy.
Put more anxiety on you. It's not, you know, it's bad enough with the COVID, but then when you have that hurricane to worry about, it's like you really feel crazy.
For the most part, it has created additional stress, although one of the funny things on Facebook has been that the hurricane of 2020 is the only thing that's normal and predictable.
Predictable because we've been dealing with hurricanes for decades and decades, but COVID-19 is a new but equally scary threat. Live in Orange County, Michelle Meredith, West 2 News.
Isaias close to hurricane strength, but not going to get there, at least not yet. And eventually, Tony, it's going to swing away from Florida.
It is, but if you're over at the Kennedy Space Center right now, you're looking offshore, you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So there's a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning out there, but let me show you a different perspective of this now. And this storm is a little bit stronger, but it's taking more of a north northwesterly track, not a northwest track like earlier in the day. The winds have come up from 65 to 70 miles an hour as of the 5 o'clock advisory. Pressure down a few millibars here. Again, this is expected to the strongest winds expected to stay just offshore. The strongest winds, greatest severe weather threat is in that right front quadrant, which puts it out over the Atlantic waters. There's 2 a.m. in the morning now, right along the Volusia-Brevard County line, and then by mid-afternoon it is racing northeastward. So right now, the wind and rain are increasing, as you've seen from our live reporters. Overnight tonight is going to be the worst time frame right through about daybreak, and then conditions will be improving from south to north as our storm lifts to the north and the east. So you can see some squalls here, but the main core still well offshore. We'll watch these bands because as they arrive, the winds do get into that 25 to 45 mile an hour range. That's what we've been feeling and seeing thus far this afternoon. But the strongest winds are way out here. We've been kind of taking a look at some of those winds, nearly 70 miles an hour, and then right there near shore, right around 45 miles an hour. So again, that's a good sign. Recent wind gust here this past half hour, running in that 15 to 35 mile an hour range. So we take a look at some of those peak wind gusts thus far today. Barefoot Bay leading the way, 49, and then Patrick Air Force Base and Melbourne Airport coming in with a 41 mile an hour wind gust. You can see as we put the overlay on, the strongest winds right now are going right along the coast there in Brevard County. So let's take a look at where this is going to be headed between now and tomorrow afternoon, gradually working north. 2 a.m. right about in here, just offshore, and then 8 a.m. you can see that track hugging the coast of Volusia County and then speeding up a little bit there as we get you on into the afternoon on Monday and headed up towards the Carolinas. So again, look at the wave action. Offshore waves right now, 15 to 20 foot seas, near shore breakers. As you heard Amanda Obert saying, she hit it right on the head, anywhere from about 5 to nearly 9 or 10 foot breakers there along the coast. Potential storm surge is there. I think it's going to be more in the 2 to 3 foot range, not 2 to 4. That's a good sign with the core of those strongest winds offshore, but we'll have to watch that. More concerned about this building surf. Brevard beaches right now just offshore, 15 to 20 feet, not getting back to normal to sometime on Tuesday, so we'll have to watch that for folks that want to get out in some sunny, warm weather. Sunday night, the worst of the ocean conditions, so to speak, off of Volusia and Flagler County. Monday and Tuesday, you can see things do begin to improve. Next high tide, by the way, 7:18, 8:10, and 7:59. Dan Biller doing a good job of showing you that coastal beach erosion. It'll peak in that 7 to 8 o'clock hour. Now, when we take a look at the coast here, again, winds here in that 40 to 50 mile an hour range over the next few hours, and then it could be some gusts as high as 65. What about inland areas here along I-4? Not as bad, 20 to 35 mile an hour winds, gusts 35 to 45, rainfall up to an inch of rain. And then here off towards the west, you can see winds even more gentle, 10 to 20, maybe a gust to 25. Rainfall could be close to an inch of rain. Let's take a look now to your day planner there. Watching the weather and the winds in the morning, north and east, and improving throughout the afternoon. Here's a peek at that 7-day forecast, getting back to what we know here in Central Florida. Heat and humidity, daily afternoon storms, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. West 2 News 66 will continue here in just a minute.
Ford retailer.
Isaias may have fouled up the splashdown of 2 NASA astronauts near the Space Coast, but it didn't stop it from happening altogether. SpaceX safely returned NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley to Earth this afternoon. The Crew Dragon spacecraft splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico near Pensacola instead of Cape Canaveral because of the weather. In May, Behnken and Hurley took off from Kennedy Space Center. It marks the completion of the first astronaut mission for SpaceX.
As we track the path of Isaias, it's important to note that its impact on the coronavirus. Many state-run testing facilities, including the one in Orange County, are closed and will reopen on Wednesday. Head to WESH.com for a detailed list of testing sites in your neighborhood. Meanwhile, today the state reported an additional 62 deaths, bringing the death total to 7,084. We also saw an additional 7,100 infections added statewide, bringing the Florida total to just 0. We are back after the break.
Now, WESH 2 Sports, sponsored by Mullinax Ford.
Looking to put together yet another strong performance, the Magic are taking on the Sacramento Kings in the second seeding game of the restart. I'm Kendra Douglas. Let's check into that game right now to see what the score is. The Magic lead now 21-14 in the first quarter. We will have highlights and a reaction from the game tonight at 11. And the Jaguars are looking at quarterback Gardner Minshew to take this team far this season, but they will have to wait a little while. The Jags placed Minshew and 4 other players on the COVID-19 list today. Players are put on the list if they have either tested positive for COVID or must quarantine after coming in close contact with someone infected. Minshew threw for more than 3,000 yards with 21 touchdowns and 6 interceptions last season. And the Rays looking to avoid the sweep in the Baltimore this afternoon. Top 6 Brandon Lau gets a hold of this pitch and takes it deep center. That clears the fence to tie things up at 1. But from there, it was all Baltimore. The Orioles would then go on to score 4 unanswered runs as the Rays get swept on the road 5-1 the final. All right, the Rays will host the Red Sox on Tuesday. Tony?
All right, Kendra, let's take a look now one more time of that satellite presentation here of Tropical Storm Isaias. Again, very impressive, but just remind yourselves there that the core of the winds is going to stay offshore, the strongest that is. We'll have tropical storm force gusts along the coast. We've been seeing that. And by tomorrow afternoon, things will be improving now from south to north.
Tony, thanks. NBC Nightly News is up next, but our coverage of Isaias doesn't stop here.
For real-time updates from the First Alert weather team and any closing, just head to WESH.com.
We will keep you posted on conditions at the coast over on social media with these live pictures and live coverage at 10 o'clock on CW18 and right back here for WESH News at 11. Have a good night.